Okay, hello everybody, welcome to episode 40 of Radio Europa. My name's Laura and I'm your guest host this evening. We're a little bit thin on the ground this evening, there's just me and Henrique here. Henrique, hello, how are you?
Hello, Laura. Oh, damn it. Hello, Laura, how are you? How is everyone?
I'm very good, thank you. What have you been up to this week? Any stories that you're covering?
So yeah, basically today we're going to talk about Australian Senator Fraser Anning, which is a very prominent character these past weeks. So if you want to introduce him and say a little bit more about him.
Yeah, of course. So we're completely backing Fraser Anning at Defend Europa. We're going to create some graphics with his speeches on, his words on, and he's currently a senator in Australia, but he's possibly up for re-election over the next few months. I don't think we know the date yet. So we're completely getting behind him. I'm making a video about him on my personal channel as well. We're going to be sharing quotes and graphics and just really, really promoting this guy because he's totally our guy. So before we begin, I'm just going to take a look at the chat. Do we have anybody from Australia with us tonight? I think we do. VIJK, I believe, is Australian. If anyone else is from Australia, make yourself known because we're talking about one of your politicians this evening. If you have any questions for us, because we only have one topic this evening, so during the second half of the stream, we'll do questions and answers. But feel free to tag DETV in your questions and we will answer them in the second half. So Fraser Anning, why do we like him? Well, the things that he speaks out against, just to name a few, he speaks very negatively of communism. He's anti-abortion and pro-life. He says that marriage is a sacred union between man and woman. He wants to stop selling public utilities abroad. He speaks about the genocide of white South African farmers. He wants to deport criminals. He wants to stop Muslim immigration and prioritise European immigration. And he says that Muslims turn up to his country to leech off the system and take welfare and housing. And he also totally sticks up for white people and shares really edgy memes about how white people can't say anything because they're racist. And he talks about white genocide, basically. He's really great. So just to give a bit of background on him, Anning has been a senator for Queensland since November 2017, and he started off as an independent. And then in June 2018, he joined Qatar's Australian Party, or KAT, as its first senator. He was then expelled from that party because of his views on immigration. And this month, so April 2019, he started his own party. He registered Fraser Anning's Conservative National Party. And in the first 12 hours, he had over 500 people join up as paying members. So he's doing really well. He completed military service between the years 1969 and 1973. And then in 1974, he married his wife and they have 2 daughters together. And he's also a Catholic. So he's very wholesome. So there's 2 major events in Anning's career that you guys may know about. And it was the first one of these events that brought him to my attention. So I haven't known about him for long. Basically, in August 2018, he gave a speech which is known as the Maiden Speech, and he called for a vote to reinstate the White Australia policy. So we're going to speak about that in a moment. That's about prioritising European immigrants and cutting non-European people from being allowed to come to the country. And during that speech, he was very critical of immigration, especially Muslim immigration, and he called the Safe Schools Coalition Australia gender fluidity garbage. He used the words final solution in that speech, which got him in so much trouble. His speech was described as being straight out of Goebbels' handbook. But his party leader praised him and a lot of the public got behind him. The far left media and a lot of politicians really condemned him for that speech. But his popularity's grown since then. You guys may also know about him from the egg incident. So if you ever click on one of his tweets and you see all his haters below his tweets, they're always just showing pictures of eggs and saying eggs. They think they're all really smart. But basically it was because of the New Zealand Christchurch terror attack. After the terror attack, he condemned the terrorist. And then he said, the real cause of bloodshed on New Zealand streets today is the immigration programme that allowed Muslim fanatics to migrate to New Zealand. So he said that although Muslims were the victims this time, they're usually the perpetrators. And he spoke about the culture clashes and the ongoing violence and the demographic replacement that we're facing in the West. And he got so much abuse for that speech. People were saying that he was sticking up for the terrorist when he wasn't, but he understands the clashes that multiculturalism brings to the West, and he understands that people are going to want to oppose that. And then I think it was the day after, there was a 17-year-old teenager who smashed him on the back of the head with an egg, and Fraser Anning just turned around and punched him in the face. I don't know if you've got a video of that. Perhaps we can show it if we have. It's on YouTube anyway. But that's a little bit of a background towards Fraser Anning. Henrique, I'm going to pass over to you because I rambled on there for quite a while. Can you tell us a bit about him? What are his policies? What does he stand for? What do you like about him? I'll just pass over to you.
Sure. So basically, Senator Fraser Anning, like you said, became very known after his New Zealand takes, his New Zealand opinions. Right after the shooting, he said, "I wonder if there will be as much outrage from the left wing when the next Muslim terrorist attack occurs. Most likely silence and talk about lone wolf attacks, mental illness, and no connection to Islam." So yeah, that's one of his tweets right on the 15th of March. And his policies are also very well known. Like you said, he became very disillusioned with the parties he joined in, so he made his own. His party objects, as you can see on his, it's attached on his Twitter, and then you can see it on his Facebook too. So he wants the vision of Sir Henry Parkes of Australia as an English-speaking, predominantly European Christian Commonwealth, as originally described in 1901 when Australia as a nation was founded. He also wants social cohesion by an immigration program that gives preference to those best able to integrate and assimilate. So we'll go a bit further on this. Stick in your head the point number 2. And then point number 3, traditional family values, including recognizing marriage as only the union of a man and a woman, and the sanctity of human life at all ages, including both the unborn and the elderly. So is basically meaning a stance against abortion and against euthanasia. Is also quite a bit of an economic nationalist as well. You know, China has been buying quite a lot of property in Australia. So I don't know if we can show up a tweet of his where it basically says Australia is not for sale. Both the Liberals and the Labour Party for years have been selling out our farms and national assets like the Port of Darwin. It's time to take back what belongs to Australian people. So he wants to stop the sell-off of Australian assets to China. Basically, a very, very strong nationalist on economics too. He also stands for some libertarian things, obviously, like free speech. You know, true free speech, not the free speech that we see on social media these days. No, free speech for everyone, conservative voices, nationalist voices. He wants also is very, very keen on the backbone of the Australian economy, which is agriculture. He's from a very rural area, so he wants to develop those areas. You know, very, very strong rooted. And also a capable and well-resourced military and strong support for the Australia's veterans, which were also very needed on protecting Australia during Japanese raids during World War II. So basically, he wants a very sort of nationalist Australia back to the 1970s, pre-1970s. Where the point number 2, where he focused a lot, is basically a return of the white Australia policies. We see on one of his tweets, one of his more recent tweets on 7th of April, so basically 2 days ago, where he says, "I support a plebiscite for predominantly European immigration, a policy which will ensure social cohesion, national identity, and economic stability are maintained. Let the voters decide what type of immigrants they want coming into the country. So this basically goes back to the White Australia policy, which was a policy that was terminated about 45, 46 years ago. And the term White Australia policy was widely used to encapsulate a set of historical policies that aim to exclude people of non-European origin, basically Asians. Australia always had a very strong anxiety on being overtaken by people of Asian descent because it's right in the area. So basically Chinese, Pacific Islanders from immigrating to Australia. So he basically wants to turn the clock back to the days when Australia only had an European population, where basically all the people from Europe came and were able to settle in and integrate properly, unlike what is happening these days across Australia, across New Zealand, across Europe, all over the Western world. So let's take a look at one of his videos where he basically describes the globalists as traitors and as people that will be charged on the future crimes that migrants and other aliens commit on Western and European people. So let's take a look. The first video.
I just wanted to say that, look, the politicians I sit with in Parliament here, and who allow indiscriminate immigration from Muslims and some of these Africans that are coming in, they're just traitors to this country. Look, as in France and in Germany and Sweden, when our streets are burning and our cities are cordoned off into no-go zones, the Australian people will realise that these politicians have betrayed them. They've opened the gates of hell and allowed this vile, barbaric scourge that is Islam into our country. These politicians will be remembered for their betrayal of this nation, not for anything else. We really need to stop these people allowing this indiscriminate immigration into our country if we ever want to save this country.
Okay, yeah, so that was one of his videos that he shared on Facebook. And I think he got banned from Facebook, but they must have allowed his account back up. Videos that he shared. Yeah, what's that noise coming from? So, Henrik, I think your volume's on. Can you turn that off? Okay, so just to clarify, guys, this politician is not a civic nationalist. He's completely talking about pro-white policies and Europeans as an ethnic group. As an ethnic group. And do you guys know Imam Mohammed Tawhidi, who's he's kind of like a Zio civic nationalist on Twitter. He's an ex-Muslim and he speaks out against Islam a lot, but he's very pro-Israel, and he always likes to steer people away from ethnic nationalism and promote civic nationalism. Anyway, he tweeted today, Imam Tawhidi, "Many ask why I oppose Fraser Anning when I support other Conservatives. Here's a good example of his divisive rhetoric. On his fledglings party website, he says he's working for real Australians. And then he said, what is a real Australian? If you are a citizen, you are Australian." And check out this response from Senator Fraser Anning. He said, "No, you are not. A piece of paper does not constitute nor demonstrate that an individual has embraced Australian values or integrated into our society. If I gain citizenship from Japan, does that make me Japanese? Of course not." And that's like, these are our talking points. These are the things that we talk about all the time. What do you think of that, Henrique? Because that sounds to me like he's playing it a little bit safe by saying Australian values, but I think he's very clear about the fact that he only classifies Europeans as being Australian. What do you think?
Yeah, so basically Senator Fraser Anning is a big Overton window pusher, isn't he? He talks all about the right points of the right of people of European descent to exist and to defend ourselves and ensure a future for our children. So it's basically a very known talking point that we often say. He also talks about the great replacement, that Europeans are at the verge of becoming minorities in their own countries. So I think he is quite aware of what is a real Australian, who were the founders of Australia, who were the founders of much of the Western countries all over the world. And yeah, he's no civic nationalist at all. If he was kicked out from so many parties, it's not because he is a civic nationalist. He basically wants to ensure that the founders of Australia, the founders of many Western countries, remain Western, remain European, remain white. That these people that have our passports and our citizenship are basically, they are basically some stooges that were recently invited, and that they are not at all part of our nations. They are just a recent trend made by our treacherous politicians. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And when he was talking about the 500 people signing up to his party in its first 12 hours of being established, he actually used the phrase, "This is the start of an uprising across Australia, of a movement to restore our nation and ensure a future for our children." I mean, that's, how many words is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's around 14. A future for our children. You see, that sounds very familiar. He has actually also spoken out against banking. He talks against international involvement in his country and banks, and he talks about wanting to nationalise everything so that foreign powers aren't controlling Australia. I mean, it's all fantastic stuff. Every time he tweets, it impresses me a little bit more. And I'm kind of at the stage now where I'm like, is this guy actually real? Because he's just saying the right things again and again and again. Henrique, anything else to add? Anything else he said that you that you're impressed with?
Yeah, sure. The guy is really amazing. I mean, we're so used of seeing our politicians basically selling off our people. You know, everything, it's of everyone. Anyone can be Australian. Anyone can be European. We're basically so used to being sold off and not having an identity. Also, let's not forget the Europe is not white speech. Just a week ago that we've discussed in Defend Europe. We're basically so used to saying that our countries are not ours anymore. That once in a while comes someone, a politician, defending our points, defending our people. That we're basically impressed that there's such a person in the politician still exists. So yeah, we need more people like him, more people telling like it is, and for real. He seems very compromised with his words, unlike some politicians elected some years ago. You know what I mean? So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, like I said, I'm because he's not verified either on Twitter, and I was talking to a couple of my Australian friends, and I was saying, is this guy real, or is this like a parody account or something? But it's his real Twitter account. And another thing as well is he doesn't apologise for anything, and I absolutely love that attitude. So when he gave the maiden speech and he said the words "final solution," he was asked to apologise about that, and he just refused. And then with the New Zealand stuff as well, when he started talking about why this was happening, he was asked to apologise for that, and he just refused. And I love that attitude, because the minute that you apologise, they just want more and more and more and more. There was another thing which I thought was fantastic. I'm a big fan, as you can tell. So after the New Zealand attack, Scott Morrison condemned him for what he said about, blaming multiculturalism for it. And Fraser Anning wrote an open letter to Scott Morrison, who's the Prime Minister of Australia. And in this open letter, in fact, I'm going to post it in the Defend Europa chat so that we can share it in the chat on YouTube, because you guys might want to read the whole thing. But this is what he basically said. Your exploitation of the killing has helped open the door to the far left, and now innocent conservatives are being accused of guilt for mass murder on the flimsy basis that the Killers Manifesto opposed Islamic immigration. And he said this guilt by association thing is just awful. And as Douglas Murray says, beliefs held by millions are not rendered invalid by the actions of a maniac. So what he's basically saying here is he might have spoke about the Great Replacement, but just because he went out and killed somebody, it doesn't mean that the Great Replacement isn't true. He also said that usually it's Muslims that kill people. So even just because it was a white person that killed Muslims this time, the response is completely different about it. And he also spoke about back in the 1970s when Western populations were ethnically, culturally, and religiously homogenous, which I thought was a great thing for him to say. He said that these changes, this mass immigration, has been initiated by the governments, not requested by the people who just wanted to retain their way of life. And he said that we did not ask for this, we did not vote for this, you've just done it without asking us. He also said that because Bill Shorten wanted to increase the loads and loads of refugees in Australia, and it would cost $6 billion a year. But then the current Prime Minister said, no, let's cut it to $3 billion spent on immigration a year. And he's saying it's just not good enough. There's no use cutting it in half. We need to just cut it down completely. He's just saying like everybody who's speaking out against this has been called racist or xenophobic or Islamophobic or a white supremacist. And he's saying that you're trying to sell this lie that multiculturalism is a strength, and it's just not a strength at all. And we all know that it's not a strength. And he wrote this letter, and I just thought it was absolutely fantastic. He's so down to earth, and he's not afraid of offending people. He's not PC at all. So that's the letter. We've got it up on the screen now, so we'll post it in the chat actually in case anyone wants to read the full thing. Henrik, did you see that letter? Did you get a chance to read it at all?
No, but he basically is right. People are so eager on anyone to apologize over something that it offends them, and keep pushing for their narrative. The left only wants more and more people to apologize, and basically trying to define what people can say or cannot say. We basically cannot say that we are becoming a minority in our own countries, that we aren't against migration. There is so much censorship on social media, on everywhere, and they want to keep us backing down from it. And he's very right on owning his words and keep going at them. Because basically he's the only one across the English-speaking world where he openly talks about this. He openly talks about the Great Replacement, and that his talking points are right, that no one was asked for it. So yeah, it's a very good thing to keep at it, and that it can set a good example all over the Western world in order to reverse these trends, to keep them from happening. So yeah.
Yeah, and at the end of the letter as well, he said, our children had bright futures. Now cohesion and trust are falling. The data shows it. There is no net benefit to traditional Australians from your multicultural dogma. And then he said, your policies will lead to white Australians, the heart of our nation, becoming a minority within a few decades. Your own figures confirm this. So he's openly talking about white Australians, like building the nation and should remain the dominant ethnic group. I just think he's fantastic. I mean, I don't know if anybody in the chat, or I don't know if you, Henrik, have got any negatives to say about him. I don't know if he's ever done anything wrong. I've only known of him for a couple of months. It was the maiden speech and the egg incident that really brought him to my attention. But I'm not saying that he's perfect. I'm not saying that he's never going to do or say something that I disagree with, but he's completely saying the right words. And we need to be promoting this guy because he's putting our talking points in front of a mainstream audience. And he's also very brave. He's very, very brave. He's taking so much abuse and so much crap, and he's just remaining strong, and he's refusing to apologise. And I just absolutely love that about him. Yeah. Anything else to add, Henrik? We've been talking about it for half an hour.
That was exactly basically what I was going to say, is setting the debate about the great replacement, this migration that we were not asked for. It is basically bringing that to the mainstream audience, is bringing a lot of awareness to the topic, and despite all the abuse he's getting, is setting the discussion on that, and it's very good for people to at least get aware, even if they are okay, those lefties and the average normie, even if they are okay with it. It's good to bring that to the discourse, and being able to speak about it, and even better, it's people being able to notice it. It's not just on the streets, it's not just on statistics, it's all over, it's on the media too. So if those talking points are stressed out, it's much easier to set policies against these trends.
Yeah, definitely. And just the way that he's just not giving them an inch at all, because if you say something wrong in the media, again and again and again, they just want you to apologise for it. And then when you do apologise for it, you end up losing your position, or you lose your job, or they never just say, do you know what, okay, you apologised, we're okay with you now. It never works like that. And this guy gets it, and he's just refusing to apologise, and I just love that. I was trying to think, because I'm making a video about him for my own personal channel, and I was trying to figure out if he was more based than Viktor Orban. What do you think? I think he is. I think he's better than Viktor Orban.
Yeah, Viktor Orban basically talks a lot about the Christian heritage. The Christian heritage of Europe is not. It doesn't seem as racially aware as Senator Fraser Anning is. Fraser Anning goes more to the core. It's not just the values. It's not just our Christian heritage. It's everything. It's our people, our heritage, our values. It's the whole package. It doesn't shy away from speaking that we as a people are at the verge of becoming a minority. And also another thing that I wanted to add is that he was very smart on starting his own party after being kicked out of so many parties so many times, because basically from now on he's the only one setting the guidelines for his policies, for his party. He doesn't have to shy away or back away from any of it.
Yeah, I mean, Viktor Orban does talk about increasing Hungarian fertility rates, doesn't he? He's trying to increase their fertility rate to 2.1 by the year 2030. So he's very good in that department, I think. But I don't think he talks as openly about the country belonging to white people, whereas Fraser Anning does. And then I think just behind those two, we have Salvini, who's not as open about the ethno side of things. He talks a lot about, being pro-Italian, but he's not as clear about what he means. But those are three great leaders, Salvini, Orban, and Fraser Anning. And we can pick fault at Salvini and Viktor Orban for certain things, and I'm sure there'll be things that Fraser Anning does as well that annoy us over the next couple of years or whatever. But these are good leaders, and we should be putting them into the spotlight. It's all about meta politics, isn't it? We don't have to. They don't have to actually become the leaders of their country and reverse the Great Replacement. We just need to get what they're saying in front of as many people as possible. And when a mainstream, legitimate politician says these kind of things that Fraser Anning's saying, it's just fantastic for waking people up. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's great to give them a spotlight, giving them more coverage and more leverage. These people need to be listened. They need also another thing. While researching for this week's episode, I was searching for a lot of videos of Fraser Anning on YouTube. And I couldn't find a single video of his where his speech wasn't edited by some sort of mainstream media. Everything that I found was only made by ABC, by BBC, and so on. All just mainstream media channels. So if you want to hear his words from his mouth or from his fingers, you should basically go to check out his Twitter account, his Facebook account, because you won't get anything of truthful or meaningful from the mainstream media. Basically, go to the source, see what he actually means, what he actually says, and do not fall for these traps of seeing the mainstream media coverage about him.
Yeah, absolutely. And Salvini's fantastic at using social media. He uses Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and just posts, all sorts of just down to earth pictures of him out like playing with kids, and he goes swimming and stuff, doesn't he? And just posts pictures of him swimming and cooking in his kitchen and things. And he knows when the mainstream media is going to criticize him, so he tells you what they're going to say on his social media before they do it. And it is really great for reaching the people. And Fraser Anning does the same as well. It's a shame actually that Viktor Orban hasn't got Twitter, because he'd probably be good on it too. What was I going to say?
But I really love Salvini's Twitter. He's a very down to earth guy. He posts all of his meals. He one day posted about tiramisu. Do you want tiramisu? And then all the Italians, yes. So it's a very down to earth character. Relatable. He's not a decent elite like most establishment politicians, and it's very nice to see politicians, people seeing themselves in their politicians.
Absolutely. One thing that I will mention is, because somebody's mentioned about the voters in Australia, and when he used the words "final solution," which is obviously a reference to National Socialist Germany, when he used those two words, the left-wing media and a lot of politicians in Australia had a complete meltdown about it, and they started a petition to try and get him fired. They wanted to, they wanted everybody to condemn him, and like they do. But as far as I know, the public in Australia didn't really care, and I thought that was a huge difference to Britain, because if somebody said "final solution" in Britain, they'd lose a job straight away. They'd probably get a criminal record for doing it, and the public would have a complete meltdown as well, because we have so many pathetic cooks over in England. What do you know about the people of Australia? Do you think that they're more based than us? Because I think that they're a lot more right-wing in Australia, or they seem to be from what I've seen. They don't seem to get triggered like people do in Britain. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, from seeing some Facebook comments, Facebook, it's very used in Australia, and also on Twitter, not as much. Twitter is much more of a left-wing echo chamber, but on Facebook, you can see a lot of people supporting him. You can see a lot of people saying, "Yeah, you're very right, Mr. Anning. I agree with you." And you don't need to say anything further. That I'll vote for you right away. So there's not as much as stigma as in Britain, or even as in Europe in some parts. As in Sweden, people basically dare tell it like it is. I don't know. Their Overton window is basically much wider than it is up here in Europe, and people in Australia always that sentiment of always being in an island and having very strict migration policies. They are owners of their country since 1901, actually from Britain, but they know who they can allow in to their country or not. And it's something that we Europeans, and there in Britain, we basically got very, very relaxed over, with our open borders deals, the Schengen area, and so on. We're very, very relaxed on that area, and the Overton window is not as wide as it is down there.
Yeah, I'm just laughing at the screen because our IT guy has put "a future for our children" and the thinking face on the screen. That's brilliant. So Emblematic in the chat has said, "I think the final solution quote was a deliberate bait, and it worked brilliantly. He got massive publicity." And I was wondering that myself, because they are quite triggering words, aren't they? Final solution. But he said them, and he must have known what it meant. He said them, and it did draw a lot of publicity to him. So perhaps it was kind of a you know, like kind of did it on purpose, you know, just to get the media attention on him and to get people speaking about him. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think he might have done that on purpose, or do you think that he didn't know what those words meant, or was it just an accident?
I don't know. Probably F joking, F serious. Who knows? I think we'll know in the future. But yeah, the guy is a very colorful character. You know, he always speaks his mind, and if he mean it for real. Who cares already? You know, people always get outraged by everything. If he was serious, then I don't know. But probably F joking, F serious. You know.
Yeah, he might have been kind of like baiting or trolling the media a little bit. I don't know, but I just struggle to believe that he wouldn't know what those words would mean. Do you know what I mean? I think that he would know what a final solution means. But he might have just been like saying, well, you know, I don't care. You're not gonna police what I'm allowed to say. It's two words that work well in this sentence. I'm going to say it. Yeah. So
also just in regards to those words, I remember that Katie Altings some days said that we needed a final solution for the Islamic terrorism in Britain or something like that, wasn't it? And she basically got really pushed over by the far left. A lot of backlash over those words, wasn't it?
Yeah, she lost her job, didn't she? Was she writing for the Daily Mail at the time? And I think she lost her job because of it. That's what I mean about in England. They would just totally, you wouldn't be allowed to say that. And he kept his job when he said it. And actually, the leader of the party said that it was a marvellous speech. In Britain, you wouldn't be allowed to say that. So Vijk, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, he disagrees with me and he said that he didn't do it on purpose. I guess we'll never know. Maybe it was just a slip of the tongue. There was another message from Mr. Andreas EM. Do you really get fined in Australia if you don't vote? That seems so weird. Yeah, I think that you do have to vote in Australia. You've got to do it by law. Can anybody confirm? Any Australians in the chat? I think you do have to vote in Australia, whereas in Britain and many other European countries, you don't have to. Voting is compulsory, yeah. So you have to vote in Australia. Yes, you do, yeah. I mean, I find that crazy because a lot of people just will have no idea what they're voting for at all, and you just have to go up and tick a box. What do you think? Do you think voting should be compulsory or not?
I don't think so. I think you will always have you know, people who aren't sure about who they're gonna vote, and they might as well not vote instead of voting for someone they're not sure or you know, a party that eventually on the long run hurts their interests after they realize they made the wrong choice, you know, because people aren't politically aware. Some people, you know. I think that Australia is not the only country where voting is mandatory. I think in Brazil it's also mandatory. But yeah, I think it's crazy. Basically, if you're not sure about who you're going to vote, basically vote in nothing. As we say here in white, vote in no one. Just write a cross all over or make a drawing of a cat or something on the voting ballots. You know, if you're so unsure about who's voting. But yeah, I don't agree with it.
Yeah, I don't agree with it either. I think that I don't think everyone should have to. I mean, I don't know if I agree with democracy, to be honest. So, but that's a conversation for another day. Okay, so Pagan Goddess has said, will UK citizens have to get a new passport when Brexit happens? On the cover of my Swedish passport, it says European Union. Well, actually, people that are requesting new passports already are getting passports that don't have European Union on. So we haven't gone back to our original blue passports. We've still got the maroon ones, but they already don't say European Union on them. So I don't think you have to go and trade your passport in, but when it expires and you apply for a new one, it will be a British one instead of a European Union one. What colour are your passports over in Portugal, Henrique?
Yeah, I don't have a passport because I never left Europe. We don't need Yeah, we don't need a passport to travel all over Europe because of the Schengen area, but I think they are red. I'm not sure, but I think they are red. But yeah. So far I don't have a passport.
Yeah, I was a maroon, but they used to be blue. It was a big thing about we're going back to the blue passports. So question from Zero. Hey Zero, do you have any Siri's just decided to start on my phone. Do you have any knowledge about the laws of one place of the British Commonwealth being exported to other parts of the British Commonwealth? I actually don't. That's something that I would have to look at. Do you know? I mean, you're not British, but I don't suppose you know anything to do with that, do you, Henrique? It's maybe not a good question for you.
I don't really have an idea over that. Portugal also had its own empire. We used to have, with Brazil, we have a special sort of deal where Portuguese are able to easily migrate into the country, and sort of vice versa. They were trying to do that with the Portuguese-speaking African countries. But basically, since we are in the Schengen area, which is basically a free movement area in Europe, Portugal only has quote-unquote open borders with European countries. But in regards to the Commonwealth, I don't think so. I think that it's actually harder for a British person to migrate to any Commonwealth country, Australia, Canada, and so on, than it is to Europe. I think that British people are much easier. It's much easier to migrate to European countries. You have so many British expats in Spain, in Italy, Greece, and Portugal. I think it's way easier for British people to come here to Europe.
Yeah. So there's a question. I'm not sure how to pronounce the first word. Is it Gios Caesar? Do you actually think you will get Brexit? Well, actually, no, I don't. I think there's a small chance that we could get a no deal because it's just going on and on and on now, and nobody can decide on a deal. So it might just be kind of forced to be a no deal, which would be great. That's what I want. But she's looking at another extension now. So it's already extended to the middle of April, and nobody can agree on a deal. But I think it's just going to be extended again. They've signed off no deal so that we can't have that, but they're also signing off every deal that she puts on the table as well. And then they're also signing off a second referendum. So they're saying that, like, every option that's put on the table in front of them, they say no to. So we're going to have to pick one of them. I don't know which one it will be, but I don't think that we'll get a proper Brexit. I think we'll be betrayed in some way. I think they'll pass by like 1 or 2 votes, just a really crappy deal that essentially means that we're staying in. And that's what'll happen. I'm not expecting a proper Brexit. But when it doesn't happen, there will be riots because people are so annoyed about it now. It's been dragged out for nearly 3 years. Question from John Doe. What are your thoughts on reparations for white British forcibly taken as slaves to start Australia? Do you know anything about that, Henrique?
Yeah,
so about reparations for white British?
I think he's meaning that basically some British thieves back in the 1800s were forced to settle and to move to Australia after British prisons were overcrowded, something like that. Basically the Australians nowadays, a great part of them, I don't know how much because there's also a lot of overstating the number, but I think a great part of the Australian population, in the sense of those people that were forced to pay their debts to society, to British society in a new land, in a new country. But basically they got a pretty sweet deal. Australia seems like a great country to live in. And but no, I don't think that any reparations will happen to those British descendants.
Yeah, I just don't agree with reparations at all. And we've always got people like David Lammy having a breakdown and some sort of panic attack in the House of Commons, giving these really over-emotional speeches where he's like, "We want reparations," and I just feel like flicking him in the face and saying, "You're not having anything. You're so ungrateful." He's honestly so ungrateful, and he's just demanding all this money for African people. He calls himself African sometimes, and then he changes and calls himself British, depending on what suits him at the time. So when he's criticising the British Empire, he calls himself African. But then when he's talking about beating those evil Nazis in World War II, he's like, us British beat those Nazis in World War II. You just can't keep up with him. I can't stand David Lammy, as you may have noticed. So I think we're going to wrap it down because we've done 51 minutes, and there's only 2 of us tonight and only one topic. But Henrique, final thoughts about Fraser Anning. What can we do to help him?
Yeah, basically, what can we do to help him? We can basically keep mentioning his words, his policies. You know, he can set a great example for any European country. Keep supporting him. If you want to donate to his party, you can donate to his party, especially if you're Australian. But basically, here on this site, we can support him by writing pieces about him and saying any nice words on his tweets after so much far left abuse that are on it. You know, with many NPCs putting there the egg meme, all that dumb stuff. We can support him even with words. So any show of appreciation is welcomed by him, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I always, I must look like a bit of a stalker actually, but when he tweets something, because I always go and look at the disgusting comments. He's one of those people where the comments underneath his tweets are just absolute venom. And I always go and say something nice to him just because I want people to see that he does actually have some support. Do you do that as well? We should all start doing that.
Of course, I sent him a few. I think that he didn't see it. He basically gets so much arrest there. But you know, when I can, I always give a kind word to him. You know, basically saying that I agree with him. But just to keep it on track, Twitter is a far left echo chamber. So take everything people there with a pinch of salt. If you go to his Facebook, you see there much more people supporting him, many people from all over Australia and even the world supporting him. So if you see his harassment, the harassment people make him on Twitter, do not take it too seriously, because you know Twitter is Twitter and it always censors conservative voices. So it's not the real world, it's not the real life.
Yeah, so we're going to be writing articles about him at Defend Europa. We're going to create some graphics about him. I'm making a video about him for my own channel, and we're just going to keep supporting him on social media, because the things that he's talking about are the issues that we're facing in our countries as well. So even though he's getting our talking points out there. So that is it for tonight. I'm actually not going to be here for the next 3 weeks because I'm going on holiday, so I will be back in a month, but William will be back next week, and Boris, Alex, Darren and Henrique will look after you over the next few weeks. So thanks for tuning in, guys. It's lovely to have you in the chat every week. Thanks for sharing the stream and liking it and commenting on it as well, because it helps with our engagement when you all do that. If you'd like to support Defend Europa, there are links in the description below. We use, I think it's PayPal, Streamlabs, and Bitcoin, I think that's it. Nothing else. Henrique, any final words before we say goodbye?
It's all.
Okay, well, bye everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye everyone. Adeus.